Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome to the basics for PathSequencer. So if you've seen the introductory video, you already know sort of what PathSequencer can do. In this video, you're going to learn how to use it. So we're going to go through all of the HDAs that are there and how to sort of what they do and sort of how they work together. And so in this video, we're just going to set up some basic examples of just some basic instancing. Just go through all of the, just go through all of the motions, like just set something easy up. And in the next video, we're going to look at some practical examples like the growing fields of flowers or the explosions and stuff like that. And then after you've watched both, then you should probably be good to go to start using this in your own productions. So without further ado, let's just dive into Houdini and let's see how this works. All right, so welcome in Houdini. Let's have a look at the basics first. So here's the one from the overview video. Stripped it down here to just some basic notes, so we can just start setting some stuff up here. Yeah, so let's learn how to how to do all of this. First, of course, you need to install the toolset. I'm assuming you've already done that, but let me quickly explain sort of how that works if you haven't done it. So if you've downloaded all of the HDAs, you get a list of HDAs. There's a bunch of other stuff here as well. This is just my sort of own personal folder, but you'll have a bunch of these Houdini HDA files. There's a couple of ways you can sort of you can kind of do this. You can either go to your Houdini preferences folder. You can make an OTLS folder and you can put stuff in there, as you can see here. Or what you can do is you can make a packages folder if you don't already have it. And you can drop this TVH sort of JSON file from there and make sure that you make a folder also called TVH in here. And then it will you put your OTLS, like your hotels in there, then it will sort of link them to it. You can see mine is pointing to this config folder. You just need to make sure that this is pointing to the correct folder there. And then in that folder, you effectively just put your you make an like you just put all of your HDAs, and then it'll work. And then so if you've done that, you can restart Houdini, and then if you type TVH, you'll see a list of HDAs. You won't see these two and this one. You'll see these ones: geosequence, initialize attributes, orient instances, skill instances, texture sequence, point to cam, retime instances, split to groups, and string replace. These are part of the tool set. And if you drop one down, then you should get. Let me open my my Houdini console. Let me put. For example, initialize attributes. All right, you can see TVA initialize attribute, attempting to fetch latest version on GitHub. Current latest version 0.1, current 0.1, up to date. If your version is not up to date, then you should download the latest version, or you can stick on another version. It will be versioning up if you're if you want to change versions to another one. You can see here, it's just listed like this. So I actually noticed that the text in the video wasn't in the HDA wasn't updated yet. So I can actually now show you I've updated it. What happens? So this showed as correct, but let me show you what happens now that I update it. So if yours is not up to date, then it will say something like this. So current version 1, latest version 0.1. Of course, this doesn't match because I have to update the one on GitHub. But if it's not up to date, you get a little pop-up. And then you can continue, or you can keep working on the with the old one. That's also fine. But yeah, so there will be a check for all of these things. I'm gonna update the latest version now on GitHub so that it won't keep doing it. Right, so now everything should be updated. GitHub takes a couple of minutes to refresh. Probably if I put it down now, it will still produce an error. Oh no, now it works. As you can see here, up to date. So this is how you can check if your HDAs are up to date. I'll probably remove the pop-up window because I imagine it might be a little bit annoying. But yeah, so that's how you can sort of install and check if everything is up to date. Again, the Patreon version, you can just get the latest from there. On Gumroad as well. The Gumroad version is going to be a little bit more expensive, but you'll get, you'll just keep getting updates. On Patreon, you just download the new one when it's there. But yeah, let's have a look at how we can set up some instancing. So this TVH initialize attributes generally is the first one you will drop down, but there's a bunch of others. We'll go over all of how they work. The main thing that you use for pretty much anything is TVH geosequence. So this is the sort of the instancing tool, but you kind of always want to put down the initialize attributes. So this will configure the correct attributes for the tool. You can see this creates a couple of different attributes here called TVH age, live, and speed. All of the attributes the tools create are sort of prepended with TVH, stands for Tim van Helsdingen, my name, just to make sure they don't interfere with any of the other things. So you can have a regular age and a TVH age. So if I scatter some points here, this will just all be assigned an attribute here. So the age is assigned either from an attribute or from a initialization frame. So by default, this will be RF start, which will be your start frame as set up in the global options. If I change the start frame here, let's say to frame 50, you can see it stays at 0, and then it all sort of starts incrementing after that frame, as you can see here. So you can change your start frame here. If we initialize from an attribute, for example, if we have a pop network, so let's say this is going to spawn some particles, of course. So let's say it's going to spawn a couple of particles. So this will already have an age. If we plug this in, you want to kind of start spawning this. So this will have a regular age, but you can see TVH age is not going to be the same as that because this is still set up to have a different start frame. As you can see. So you can see both age, both TVH age, or I can initialize from an attribute. I can initialize it from, not with capitals, just with a regular. Right. So if we do it like this, you can see it will sort of take over the regular age, and then you can see it will do it from the existing attribute. Of course, if you have other attributes on this, you can also initialize it from there. For example, curve view would be an example. So curve view would be an attribute across your curve, but you can also, of course, if you have an attribute noise on here on your points, and we call it density, something like that, float, and we increase the amplitude, and we could say initialize from density. Then the attributes will be sort of initialized from so the higher density parts will already have a higher age value, and then of course you can retime those parts. So a bunch of different ways to sort of assign this age attribute. So this initialized attribute is kind of important. I'm gonna just go back to just doing a start frame for now to keep it simple. There's also some attributes here. So the seed attribute, so it will create an attribute called TVH seed, or just regular seed, sorry for this one. So I guess this is the one exception where I don't use TVH, but there's a seed attribute there, which if you change the seed, it will change the seed there. You can say give it an attribute to create it from. By default it's set to ID, but you can put it to ptnum. If there's no ID, it will use ptnum by default. So it will just create a random thing. There's also another thing here called base speed and live. So this will create the speed of the instances, and the live will determine it's depending on, like, if you have scales over live, for example, if they scale up and down, that's where a live attribute, for example, comes in. Aside from that, doesn't really do a lot. Now, let's have a look at setting up some instancing. Let's just first focus on just some some basic stuff. We can start instancing maybe just some static stuff first. just to not bother with the animation stuff. So you can see here, if we put down TVH geosequence, you can see instance option. There's a bunch of different options. You have static from folder, static from scene, static from file, sequence from disk, sequence from scenes, alembic sequence. So these are just all the options. So whether or not you want to instance static stuff or animated stuff, you just all do it from the geosequence. First I had the idea of maybe splitting it up, but I figured would make more sense to just do it in one HDA. So let's say static from scene. Static from scene, by the way, doesn't mean that if your scene stuff has animation, it will just if it's animated here, it will still animate on here. It will just won't do any time remapping on it. So I can just static from scene. I get an object thing here. I can just drag something in. You can see right now I get a bunch of squabs. Let me reduce the amount. Now I want to do another one. I want to add toy. I want to add pig, and maybe I want to change the seed for distributions. You can see I can do that on here. So you can see like nothing really happens because these are just static pieces of animation. If I do set them up to move, like at for example at time times 30. So they will still rotate. So this doesn't necessarily mean, all right, it will time freeze everything. It just means that all of the nodes that I have to sort of influence the movement will not work when it's set up to static. Static is just focused on doing very fast static instancing, not doing anything crazy. So if you just need to do static instancing, this is the fastest sort of way to do it. Yeah, and there's a separate sort of seed that you can use here, which sort of is an override. So this is a global one, and this is a separate one here. So you can, for example, if you have two instances here, you could sort of set up your instancing like this, or you could change your global seed here. Pretty simple. Right, so aside from static from scene, there's also static from folder. This allows you to effectively take geometry from a folder. So here you can see geometry folder. I can grab the plus icon. I can point this to a folder that has geometry. For example, my scatter geo folder here. You can see there's a pig.bgo.sc, shadable.bgo.sc, and squab. Let's try. Right. I need to move my timeline. Sometimes you need to sort of move your timeline for these to update. But you can see now this, this has sort of instanced them from the geometry over there. You can also see there's a sort of an extra folder in there. We can alternatively, we can add that in here. Then move the timeline, and you can see it will also add the geometry that's in this extra folder. Or alternatively, we could just say in this one, search nested folder, and you can see this will also search any folder that's in here that also has geometry. So it's just easy to set up. So this is a very easy way to, for example, if you have a bunch of wedges, if you don't know what wedging is, it's effectively, let's say you have a setup that automatically generates like 100 different buildings and you want to make modular city. You're going to have a folder with 100 different buildings, or a folder with a folder with subfolders with other stuff in there. So it's an easy way to sort of set that up. Here's going to be an example. For example, I can go to my, I think it's here, wedges. Here I have 100 wedges of just pretty generic geometry, but you can select it. You can see this will automatically grab random geometry from this wedges folder. And again, if I change the seed here, it will grab completely different ones. Like they might look very similar, but it's just the extrusion amount and all of this stuff is it's just a little bit different. You can see them sort of, yeah, going like that. So this will, so if you have a bunch of wedges, this is how you can sort of very easily just instance all of your wedges at once without needing to do any manual configuration, which is going to be pretty, pretty simple. We call this, I guess, wedges. Call this scatter geo and scene geo. So pretty straightforward. So yeah, so we've had static from folder, static from scene, or we're going to use static from file, which does exactly what you think it would do. You get here an option to select a file. I can go in here. I can just grab, maybe I can grab like this mesh for the wedge. Then I grab, I go in here, I go to scatter geo. I'm going to grab my pig. I'm going to grab another one. I'm going to grab squab. I'm going to go to yet another folder. I'm going to grab cone extra, grab Paul. And you can see now I get a selection of all of this geo that I've selected. And again, I can just change the seed here to change the distribution. So from file, static from file. So this is all sort of, yeah, this is a very easy way to sort of just set up static geometry from a file. So the way that these instances get set up is actually through an attribute here called instance file. You can see here you have an option. It's on there every time you sort of do something from disk. You see the output attribute. So it's set up for instance file. You can turn on or off the output instance geo. If you turn it off, you can see I just get my points. Effectively, what it's doing is here you have these paths. So it puts down sort of a path to where your file lives on disk, and that writes it out. Yeah, just to this attribute. So if you just turn it off, you can also set up instancing yourself. If you just put instance here and you put this into instance file, you kind of get the same. So this allows you to sort of turn that on or off. In some cases, like you might not want to change, like you might not want to instance it. For example, with my flower example, when I yeah, right, there we go. So with the flower example, for example, when I'm rendering, like for the preview, I have my BGOs. I want them to show up. But for the Redshift proxies, which are generated like during render time, I can just keep this turned off and it will work fine. So that's why there's an option for that. Let me go back to my basics. So yeah, pretty straightforward on how to sort of set up static geometry. Now there are a couple of other nodes that are sort of working in conjunction with this. Let's say you want to scale these things. Now there are of course already like attribute randomize we could use to randomize p-scale and stuff like that. But there's also a TVA scale instances and also a TVH orient instances. These have a couple of extra things. That's why I made separate nodes for them. Let me just drag them in. Let's output, let's go in here and let's actually output instance geo. Right, so this thing, scale instances, allows me to sort of do like random scales, like a global one and something like that. I can do over live, so I can scale them over live. And again, that's where the live attribute comes in. So we go in here. I can sort of scale them in and out over live if you want to do that. You can also still change some random stuff in there. I guess I could remove the randomness here if I would. I don't know. It's there. But the benefit of something that why you want to sort of do the scales here, because I could also just do an attribute randomize. I could say, right, let's just do p-scale. You see, this also still works. Like I can randomize them with regular p-scales. It will automatically grab that and use that instead. However, the benefit from my HDA here is like, let's say I have these instances. So let's say I want my pigs to be bigger and just my pigs. And the thing is, like, I don't really have, like, you won't have control over that, right? So, like, just, of course, you could still do it. You could group by attribute and then sort of use your instance file attribute and then set up your scales like that. which is one way to do it, or just an easy way. That's why this kind of exists. Let's say I blast away my pig here. Delete non-selected. Non-selected. Let's have a look at the index. So set tvh index. So every instance gets an index number, which sort of sets up its index in the list. So if you have, you can have a look at the maximum that is there. So you can see index 3 is the maximum, is also say index max here. So I can actually then have a look at the, I can go in here in the scale, actually sets up scale per index. And okay, I want to set this to the maximum amount. So I can have a look here at the index max. So you always sort of have a look at your geosequence, and then before that, you kind of set up the scale per index to the maximum that is generated here. So there will be amount of instances that are created. Right. So now I have a, let's see, let's put everything to 1. Right, I can go in here. And you can see now I can do the global stuff here. I can go scale per index. I can have a look at my, so I need to get my scale 1. I can go to index 1 and I can scale just the pig here. So then you might be like, all right, this is, I mean, it's not too complicated. I have to grab them manually and do that. Yeah, but sure. But let's say we have, for example, we have all these wedges, right? Where we have 100 wedges. We have here, and we have a whole, like we have a ton of geometry here. Let me remove the scales like that. Let's just do regular scales. Now, if we have this is going to be a lot more tricky, right? But still, like we can have a look at, all right, I like this one maybe. Delete non-selected. It's actually index 99, or maybe we can grab another one that just has a little bit more of a number in between. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at index max. This is index 88, my birth here, very nice. Right, so now we can have a look at the wedges. We can have a look, all right, there are 99. So we can go into scale per index 99. Then we can go to index 88. So it should be this one there. So we can have a look and we can go to index 88. There we go. And you can see it will scale up randomly the one that we have there. But you see, apparently there's more of this one. You can see it's exactly the same one, because if we blast away this other one as well, you see, it also had index 88. You can see this can be a super useful way to sort of scale up your instances. So it gives you a lot of control. There's also a tvh orient instances. So this is kind of the same idea. This allows you to rotate your instances. So you can set up sort of your minimum and maximum rotation. You can see sort of randomize the rotation here. So there's sort of a global one, and then there's a randomized one. So if you just put this to 0 and just do this one, you can see all rotates them the same. And then you have sort of this as a per thing. This also has per index, but if you do per index, again, do 99. And then let's say we go to index 88. We should be able to just rotate, right, that specific index that we have. As you can see, it works. So per index can be pretty useful for tight knit control. So there's another thing you can do. You can set up animations actually. So you can say animate over age. Right. So now you can see if I do rotations per, this will effectively, so a second will be your frame rate that you have. Effectively we'll do one rotation every 24 frames in this case. You can do rotations like that, and they will sort of speed up, and I can do randomized speed. So some will rotate slow, some will rotate fast. Again, so this will also be if you do the retime instances. There's also a global speed. This will also influence what is happening here. You can see some will be really fast, some will be really slow. You can set up the rotations like that. So pretty straightforward. You can see there's also sort of a default orientation that you might want to set up. So because you can see here, this also works with these things. You can change the default orientation that these things sort of rotate around. Or if I do like an attribute randomize, if I do like orient, it will use that. If I do normal, it will use the normal. So you can also set them up like this, but over here in the orient instance, it will just grab the default orientation. Yeah, so that's sort of basics of sort of how to do static instancing. So another couple of things that I might want to put in this for this static instancing before we move to the actual sequencing stuff. You can see there's quite a lot. I think I'll split up the static and the sequences part as well. There's also some other things. You can use, for example, TVH string replace. If I put this down, this allows me to change a string in here. Let me do it on one of the wedges, or let me do it on static from file. Probably makes the most sense to do it on there. All right, so let's have a look at this path. So you can inspect this path. You can set this up with attribute to search instance file. All right. Let's say I don't want pigs to be in here. And I want all of the pigs to be the toys, which is going to be toy.bgo.sc. I can rename a string and I can say, all right, pig, toy. I can either do a new path or I can set up the regular path. If I do just a regular instance file path, this overrides it. And again, now turn on update instances. And why is toy not there? Let me just double check. I don't think there's a toy. All right, I'm gonna do squab instead. I thought there was also a toy. Let's do squab. Right, now you can see all of my pigs will be updated to squabs. Beautiful. If there was a toy, like I can actually make a toy. Let's do. I kind of thought I had saved it out. Let's say let's actually make a toy. So let's copy and paste this path. Put it in here. Let's actually write out a toy. Save to disk. Right now I can go in here and say toy. Right, now everything will be updated to toy. So you can see pretty cool. I can also give this a different name. You can see now it won't update them. Because it will be a different path. But you can see I will get a kaas means cheese in Dutch. I should probably do cheese. Right, now you can see I get a new path for my cheese attributes. If I do instance and I put it to my attribute called cheese, it'll just instance everything that has cheese on it. So you can see pretty useful, pretty useful little thing. And you can of course you can do multiple renames, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So super flexible way to sort of set up your instancing. Just having a look at these paths. There's one more that I want to discuss for now is TVA group split to groups. So this allows you to split to different groups. So let's say I have these points coming in here. So just these regular points. Right, how many points do I so I can run over points or I can run over primitives. So if you want to do this after the fact, after you already have your geometry, maybe you want to do it on your primitives. Doing it over points. You can also group them by index if you want instead of doing it like this. So group by index will create a group for every single index. So if I have a look at this now, oh, not that. I can actually, I have 4 indices. So I can go index 1, delete non-selected. Now I have all my pigs. which is of course going to be pretty useful if I have it on my wedges, for example. I will have a ton of groups here. You can see for all my indices to blast them away, so that's useful. Or I can just create a random number. Let's say now I do 3 groups and we'll just randomly group them together. And you can see now I just get random groups. So that's also another one. And again, of course, all of this stuff also still works on all of the animated geo. But for that, let's put the animated stuff in a separate video. At first I thought I was going to do this in one video, but I think it makes more sense to split this up because we're already been going pretty long with just the static geometry. So let's call this static basics. And now in the next video, we're going to talk about some more interesting stuff about instancing animated geometry. Right, see you there.